If you played when the game was released, or if you watch any gameplay during that time, you probably noticed a game mode called Quick Play. Where did this feature go? It is common that during a game's life cycle, some features end up removed due to being outdated, useless, or they don't fit the game's current design philosophy. Dead by Daylight is no different, and today we will be talking about removed content from the game. Now, isn't this part 2 of another video I made, just with a different title? Well, not exactly. The content featured in this vid was part of the live game, unlike the cancelled features that most of them were never part of the live game at all. Let's talk about this mysterious quick play game mode. Whenever you select this option, the game would automatically assign you the role that is played the least in order to get faster queue times. Remember that during this time, you could freely change between your killers while in a lobby, instead of being locked in. Now, this game mode has been part of the game since the launch on June 14th, 2016, and it lasted up to the 27th of April 2017. The reason for its removal was that not a lot of people actually use this feature. However, something curious that I do want to add is that technically this feature's purpose is back in the game with the added matchmaking incentives, as both of these features' purpose is to have the player play the role with the least current players in order to improve the queue times. Leatherface Masks. Most of you probably know about this, but for those of you that don't, let me explain. Leatherface used to have 4 unlockable masks that were based on the original 4 survivors of Dead by Daylight, which were called Leader Face, Smart Face, Athlete Face, and Survivor Face. In order to unlock each mask, you had to kill the respective survivor 25 times. This was the only unlockable cosmetic in the entire game, not counting prestigious, and it added a really cool grind element to the game, as well as extra customizations with an original and amazing idea for a licensed character. On the 4th of January 2022, Behavior announced the removal of these masks due to them being used in order to harass players. So let me explain the problem here. Some players in the Dead by Daylight community use the Smart Face mask on Leatherface to simulate an act called Blackface and harass people of color playing this game, either by face camping, harassing them on their livestream, and basically target these survivors in order to be extremely toxic. The solution from Behavior was to remove all of these masks altogether and give all players that played Leatherface a 6,000 iridescent shard compensation. Now, as you might expect, things got controversial on this topic, and the views on it are very divided. On one hand, there are groups of people that were targeted by these toxic Booba players, and they were very happy with Behavior's choice. In fact, the artist who created this mask for Booba said that he was happy with their removal. On the other hand, a lot of people were unhappy with this decision, as it didn't fix the inherent problem of toxic players harassing others. In fact, removing these masks also removed any opportunity for Leatherface having the faces of future survivors, and also removed a lot of customizations options for him. The compensation itself was not enough either, as they removed a paid cosmetic in order to give a free currency that you cannot even use to buy a different mask for Leatherface. All in all, this topic is already too old to discuss, and I don't see the point in further talking about it. The mask lasted from the 14th of September 2017 up to the 25th of January of 2022, making it the removed feature that lasted the most on this game by far. Hoarder's secondary effect. This is probably the funniest removed feature in the game. So back when the perks for the twins were revealed, Hoarder not only added extra chests to the map and had a notification every time a survivor interacted with one, but it also apparently made the items from all chests to be of low quality. This made sense, as giving extra chests to survivors is basically gifting them free items and the potential chance of a very strong medkit, toolbox, or flashlight. However, there was a problem. This effect did not work during the PTB, and it was listed as a common issue. No problem, after all, it's the PTB. When the Twins DLC was released, this bug was still a known issue. In fact, 5 out of the new 6 perks were bugged in some way. However, like I said before, this was listed as a known issue. All they have to do is fix it and make it so Hoarder gives survivors less quality items. Well, in the end, this effect was completely removed from the perk. Nobody knows exactly why this effect was removed, and most people believe that it is because the developers don't know how to program it without breaking the perk, so this feature was potentially removed because the coders couldn't make it work, which is very funny for me. Removed offerings. Did you know that there are actually a lot of offerings that have been removed from the game? Veterans of the game probably remember how many offerings were cluttering the bloodwebs in the past. The first ever offerings that were removed from the bloodwebs are the slightly and moderately map offerings. These didn't guarantee you going to the desired map, unlike the ones we have in the game, as they simply boosted your chances a bit, which in retrospective is a really useless effect for an offering. However, what was cool is the lore you got for the maps included. The Red Forest was the last map to have these types of offerings, as they were finally removed from the Bloodweb on the 26th of October 2017. However, what is very interesting about these offerings is that they were never disabled from use, meaning that if you still have one from the past, you can actually use it in-game. So if you want to confuse new players and see posts on Reddit asking what an offering is, make sure to burn one in your next match if you do have one. The next set of removed offerings were the Moonlight Bouquets. These offerings allowed you to change the brightness of a map, either by increasing it or by making everything darker. Now let me tell you, the new Moon Bouquet was absolutely busted. It made playing the game basically impossible as a killer, since you could hide in dark corners with Claudette with very ease. In fact, this offering was the thing that made Blendette a popular term in the community, as it was so bad, Behavior had to nerf the darkness of the Left 4 Dead black t-shirt because it made her basically invisible. These offerings were removed from the Bloodweb in the 20th of November 2017, with the reason being the balance issues they brought to the game, as well as the developers wanting to have full control of the map's brightness. Later, on the 26th of October, the Moonlight Offerings were completely disabled and you cannot use them anymore. It is funny that the next map added to the game after this was Ormond, a map that had a completely different lighting setting than any past map we ever had in the game, which could be the reason the Moonlight Offerings were completely killed from the game. Finally, the last removed offerings we will be talking about are the Splinter Offerings, or what I like to call them, the Killer Trials. These offerings allowed you to try a different killer in your match, which allowed you to test and see if the DLC was worth the price. These offerings were made for Hag, Doctor, Myers, Bubba, Pig, and Freddy being the last killer to have a Splinter offering. However, there were a lot of bugs and errors with these offerings. First of all, you could still get them even if you already owned a killer, which was a waste of blood points, as using it would make you play the killer perkless and add-onless. The second issue was the possibility of a survivor hacking the game in order to force the killer to play a desired character, which broke the game. This led the trappers that had no mask and couldn't use their power to pigs without ears and with a broken model. The nail in the coffin for these offerings were the introduction of the store and iridescent shards, which made all original killers viable with time. As such, these offerings were removed from the game on the 9th of March 2020, making these the offerings that lasted the most in the game before being removed. Negative add-on effects. The last thing removed from the game is more of a design philosophy by Behavior. With the introduction of the nurse, the most busted killer in the game by far, her add-ons all had a negative effect as a trade-off for her very strong power. However, these negative effects were very bad, either increasing the charge time, reducing the distance of teleportation, and even one add-on made it so that the teleport was slightly inaccurate. These effects were so bad that nurse players decided the best is not to use any add-on at all. The next killer that got the same treatment is the Hag, with the same problem. Her add-ons all had negative effects, either increasing the setup time, reducing the teleport range from a trap, or reducing the duration. Now, according to the developers, these were made in order to balance the already strong powers this killer had, but instead of giving them add-on variety in matches, this ended up making the killers worse and just make it so that most players didn't use any add-ons at all, which was a complete waste of blood points. Later, with the balance changes done for the Hag, most of the negative effects of the add-ons were removed, making her be way better than she used to be. With the nurse, this was done when her rework was introduced, where they basically changed every single add-on to have a different effect. Now, I would like to ask you, the viewer, What do you think of having very strong add-ons balanced with a negative trade-off, like the Alchemist Ring for Blight, or basically most of Nurse add-ons? This is already a thing for the Mint Rack, for the Iridescent Head for Huntress, and also for the Iridescent Pinky Finger for the Clown, which gives very strong negative effects that don't make it so easy to use and abuse those add-ons. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video, and stay tuned for more content like this. Have a nice day!